You know that moment around 6 p.m. when you suddenly realize you haven't eaten since breakfast? And now you're not making great decisions. You're inhaling whatever's fastest. You're telling yourself tomorrow will be different, but tomorrow the same wall to wall calendar is waiting for you. Well, here's the thing, the fix for this is actually way simpler than you might think, and it has absolutely nothing to do with discipline. Welcome to the Do More, Stress Less podcast. I'm your host, Alexis Hasselberger, a time management and productivity coach. In every episode, I give you actionable, practical tips to help you learn to use your time in a way that feels good to you every day. No more hustling, scrambling, or struggling to keep your head above water. So let's dive in, and soon enough, you'll be doing more and stressing less. Is it hard to feed yourself during the day? You want to eat healthy, but you're short on time. And you sometimes realize that between all those meetings, you haven't had time for lunch. Or maybe it's the opposite. You're jamming a fried chicken sandwich that you door dashed into your face, spilling crumbs on your laptop for the third time this week. And that doesn't feel great either. Well, I've struggled with this too. And while I'm definitely too frugal to DoorDash lunch, that means that I have, on more times than I'd like to admit, forgotten to eat until dinner and then realized that I'm totally starving. But recently, because I'm also trying to eat more protein as a middle-aged woman, if you know, you know, so my muscles don't deteriorate into nothingness, I decided that it was time to tackle the healthy eating when you have less time than you'd like problem. So here are a bunch of options that I've found to be working, and they're sorted by effort level. So I'm going to share them with you by effort level. So the first set of options is like when there's virtually no prep involved. This is like you literally have 2 minutes between meetings. You're just going to run by the fridge and grab something. You can either eat it straight from the fridge or the cabinet, or you can nuke it in the microwave real quick. So first thing, string cheese or other kind of ready to eat like snacking cheeses. String cheese has a lot of protein in it, and it is easy to grab and easy to eat. Another one is apples with peanut butter, right? You don't even have to slice the apples. You could sit there with a spoon in the peanut butter and an apple that you're taking a bite from. Another one is beef jerky. Lots of protein will give you some energy. I also like some frozen things that they have at Costco or wherever you may shop in bulk. So things like frozen tamales or pupusas. These are great things that you can heat up right away and are actually pretty healthy. A rotisserie chicken. Another great Costco score. I had a college roommate whose family used to call it a pickin' chicken because you would leave it in the fridge and then people would just pick off parts of it with their fingers all week long. And no, I don't think this is gross. This is actually great. And maybe if it is gross, it's still great. Another one, this is actually what I had today for lunch, was yogurt with granola and fruit. You can have cottage cheese if you like cottage cheese. It has a lot of protein. It's easy. You can grab it from the fridge. Another one is hummus or baby carrots. And then a big one here is just leftovers. Any kind of leftovers that you have, you can just eat them for lunch and it's great. I think my kids are always making fun of me for the fact that I'm always saying, no, put that in the fridge. It would be great with a fried egg on top. Like any leftovers with a fried egg on top, great meal. All right, now let's move on to the medium prep bunch, right? This is stuff where it's not going to take a ton of time. Maybe you can make a batch on the weekend in 10 minutes or less, and then you can kind of eat it from the fridge. So you do have to do some prep, but not a lot of prep. So one of these is marinated eggs. It's like hard-boiled eggs or soft-boiled eggs, right? Somewhere in the middle that you marinate in, soy sauce and some other seasonings and a little bit of water so they don't get too salty. If you go online and you search marinated eggs, specifically I use this Korean marinated eggs recipe, you will find this. I make a batch of these pretty much every weekend. I don't even always get to eat them myself because my 17-year-old has usually eaten more of them by the time I get to it than I could even imagine, and he's asking for more. Another one is eggs, hard-boiled eggs, right? So if you don't want to go the marinating step, just make a bunch of hard-boiled eggs, keep them in your fridge. They are a great snack, lots of protein. Another one that we like to make in batches is like whole roasted sweet potatoes. So you can get these in lots of places in Asia. I think that's where we first came across it, in Taiwan and Korea. But essentially, just bake a bunch of sweet potatoes, with their skins on. Just throw them in the oven. And then you can just nuke them in the microwave whenever you want to eat them. Just kind of eat them like a banana by peeling off the skins. They are really, really good just on their own, and they are quite healthy. Now, if you want to do a teeny tiny bit of prep in the zones that we're already talking about, like egg salad, we've talked about the hard-boiled eggs. What if you just mashed them all up with a fork and added a little bit of mayo and some seasoning? Now you have egg salad. You can eat it on lettuce wraps. You can eat it in a sandwich. You can eat it straight out of the container with a fork. How about tuna salad? Same thing, right? Open a couple of cans of tuna, mix it with some mayo, maybe some pickles. That's how I like to do it. Eat it on lettuce, eat it in a sandwich, eat it with a fork straight out of the container. These are great things to have around for when you are ravenous and you need something healthy. And again, the leftovers with the fried egg. If you just heat up the leftovers, that's like no prep. If you make a fried egg, throw some chili sauce or some hot sauce on top, it's a little bit more prep, but it does make it a lot better. Okay, and then let's move on to a bunch of things that you could do, if you like to cook, right? These are more prep, of course, but they're things that you can make in big batches, and then you can freeze them in meal-sized portions, ready to be nuked on a weekday, anytime you like. So these are things like any kind of soup, really, like Italian wedding soup, minestrone soup, any kind of like greens soup, broccoli cheese soup, doesn't really matter. Any kind of soup that you can make, any kind of soup that you like, you can freeze it in meal-sized containers, heat it up in the microwave, and you have got soup ready to go for lunch. Lasagna is another great one. Lasagna reheats really well. It freezes really well. You can make it in gigantic quantities, but you can freeze it in small sizes. Things like meatballs, that's another great one. Or let's say you don't even want to make them. You could go to IKEA and get their Swedish meatballs in a frozen bag, right? Or wherever you get meatballs. These are another one. And then things like, a jambalaya, a big like rice-based dish with meat and things like that. These are things that can be made in a big batch. They don't deteriorate in the freezer. They still taste good when you take them out. And so if you like cooking, this can be a good route. If you don't like cooking, go with the easier methods above. And if you've got ideas, let me know. I want to know, what's your favorite go-to quick, healthy weekday lunch for when you don't have any time, but you do need to eat and you don't want to be DoorDashing something. And that's a wrap on today's episode of the Do More, Stress Less podcast. If today's episode resonated with you, share this episode with a friend or two who might appreciate a little more ease in their days. I promise you won't regret doing this 30-second good deed. See you next time.